Good afternoon. I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News, coming to you from our digital desk, where we can see you've got the governor, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, taking a seat there. Today is bill signing day. The governor expected to sign dozens of bills into law, including Avery's Law. And you might be asking, what is Avery's Law? If you look at the young woman just to the right of Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, that is Avery Russell. She was attacked by two pit bulls back in 2024, and one of the bills being signed today is going to drastically change the rules around dangerous and vicious dogs, the protections for the public, and the penalties for the people who own dogs who have attacked. Let's take you live to Columbus.
Russell, who is here with us today. Thank you for joining us. Sadly, she was severely injured by two dogs in Reynoldsburg last year. She faced surgeries and rehabilitation after the attack. But we are grateful that she has taken her story to the public. She's taken her story to the state legislature. And because she did that, we are able to sign this bill today. Again, thank you very much for doing this. We're going to sign the bill. Everybody may wonder why we have all these pens out here. Our goal is to give each one of you a pen that was actually used in the signing of the bill. So this is a more slow process. My handwriting is not very good anyway, but it doesn't improve.
Mine's not either. It's okay. My mom's been trying to improve mine too.
You guys can talk.
While the governor is signing Avery's Law, I can go over some of the changes with you. First of all, this bill, House Bill 247, and as we like to say, politicians can never agree on anything. That was not the case with Avery's Law. It was a unanimous vote in both the House and the Senate. That never happens. One of the rules that, one of the designations is, everybody asks, well, what is a dangerous dog? What is a vicious dog? This gives a category. A dangerous dog is a dog that has attacked either a person or another dog and did not cause severe injury, just the simple attack. That now designates that dog as a dangerous dog. A designation of vicious dog is when it attacks and severely injures a person or kills a person. That's where this law starts. From there, if you have one of those dogs that's designated either dangerous or vicious, you now need to pay $100 annually to register that dog. You need to carry $100,000 in liability insurance. And if that dog were to attack again, the penalties for the dog owner are greatly increased. A dangerous dog that attacks, that's now a 4th-degree misdemeanor for the dog owner. The vicious dog that attacks again, that's now a 4th-degree felony with a 6-month minimum jail term. Basically, what they've tried to do is legislate or make it extremely expensive for someone to own a dog that has previously already attacked. The case of Avery Russell, the young lady in the black dress, she was attacked by two pit bulls that had already previously attacked and hurt another person. She was at a play date with a friend of hers, and she was viciously attacked. They tore off both ears and did severe damage to her face. It put her into a coma. That's how vicious that attack was. And she and her mother have been true champions of this piece of legislation, as you see them there. Looks like the bill is signed.
Miles this way. Can you squeeze in a little bit on the end so we can get everybody in? And then in the back, if you can't see me, I can't see you.
as well, if you don't mind. Ready, 3, 2. Good deal. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you so much. My sister's going to snap.
As we wait for the governor, I do believe he's got a couple of other bills that he's either already signed or will be signing today. I know there's some rule and law changes to marijuana in the state of Ohio. The governor has not been a fan of the legalization of marijuana and the sales in the state of Ohio. He feels that the potency is too high. And he's very concerned of what happens when it gets in the hands of the youth that are still, their brains are still developing. The governor has said that the potency of today's marijuana is unlike what it was in the 60s and 70s and can do severe damage to young children's brains when they get a hold of marijuana. The podium is set up. We'll see if the governor takes some questions, makes some comments about not only Avery's law now signed, but some of the other pieces of legislation that the governor signed today that is now going to be law. I believe it takes 6 months after the governor's signature to take effect. And that will be the case with today's legislation as well. So we'll wait through this ceremony and see if we get the governor up to the podium. I'm sure he's going to make comments about, again, he's signing dozens and dozens of pieces of legislation today.
And if we can take one right here.
think we just heard the governor say, "I'll be back." He's perhaps going to escort the family out there. We're going to stay with this. It sounds like he'll be coming back to make comments on all of the legislation that was signed into law today. So we'll just hang tight here with our live shot out of Columbus. Again, it is bill signing day. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signing dozens of pieces of legislation into law. Again, we just watched the bill signing for Avery's law. These are new protections and new laws, stiffer penalties when it comes to dog attacks, vicious and dangerous dog attacks. They've clearly defined now in the state of Ohio what is a vicious dog and what is a dangerous dog. We've gone through those definitions. A dangerous dog is a dog that's attacked a person or another dog but did not cause severe injury. And then a vicious dog is a dog that has attacked a person causing severe injury or death to another person. If a person wants to continue to own that type of dog, they have to pay a registration fee. Obviously, when a vicious dog then attacks again, as we see 3 more pieces of legislation getting ready to be signed by the governor. You have to pay a $100 fee annually to register that animal. You have to carry $100,000 in liability insurance. And then if that dog attacks again, it strengthens the regulations. Dog wardens can instantly go in and take a dog. It can then be humanely euthanized. What they've really tried to do is take out, there were a bunch of loopholes that allowed dog owners, once the dog had attacked, to go through a process, be able to save the dog, get the dog back, and they're trying to keep that from happening in the future. So we'll stay with this shot, and we'll see what other legislation is signed by the governor, and we'll just stay with our shot here.
just a moment, I will be signing 5 bills that will bring much-needed property tax relief to Ohio families. I want to thank Speaker Huffman, Senate President McCauley, as well as the bill's lead sponsors, Senator Sandy O'Brien, Representative Bill Romer, Representative David Thomas, Representative Thomas Hall, and Representative Jim Hoops. I know Jim could not be here. I talked to him earlier. He appreciate everyone's work on these bills. I also want to thank Pat Teaberry, who was here, as well as Bill Seitz, who chaired a working group that I named to make recommendations to the General Assembly and recommendations to the governor. These recommendations had to do with how to fairly achieve property tax relief and at the same time protect our schools, our police, our fire, and our essential other services. The working group and the legislature had a difficult task. They really had to carefully balance these really important goals. The bills that I'm about to sign, I believe, do that. With the signing of these bills, no longer will families see dramatic spikes in their real estate taxes. And except when new levies are passed, families will experience increases in property taxes that will be limited to the cost of living increase. Further, when voters vote on levies, there will be more clarity. More clarity as to what the levies will do, and more clarity as to what impact they will have on property owners. Further, to smooth the transition to the new law, school districts that had a reappraisal or update of property values in 2023 or 2024 will receive the same revenue they received in 2024. This will be achieved by providing payments to the school district from unused funding that was appropriated for the expanded sales tax holiday. This will amount to $306 million in fiscal year 2026 and $105 million in fiscal year 2027, all for this property tax relief. For those homeowners who live in their own home, their tax credit will be increased. This credit will be paid for by the state, so there will be no loss of revenue to other local school districts or other local entities. I want to again thank Speaker Huffman, Senate President McCauley, and the members of the General Assembly who worked so very hard on these bills. Also want to thank all the members of our working group. Their work has achieved a delicate balance, protecting our schools, fire, and other local services while bringing about significant relief for homeowners. Again, thanks to all members of the General Assembly who worked on this. We also thank all the members of the working group. Now I'm going to ask Speaker Huffman, and then Pat Teaberry to give remarks. Mr. Speaker.
Thanks very much, Governor. This is really is a momentous event. We've had a lot of statements like the most significant tax reform in history in the last 50 years, and although sometimes folks tend to use those kind of phrases and they sound like hyperbole or overstatements, I truly believe that that is so. And for one reason, Bill Romer and Dave Thomas say it's so, and in addition to Tom, and they're people who are experts in this. But one of the things that today represents, and Governor DeWine did a good job describing what has happened over the last year and a half or so, but it also recognizes that the work that was done in a previous General Assembly on a tax reform study group, and the thinking that emerges, as it usually does in government, which evolves and emerges slowly. There's a good reason why governments move slowly, because if they can move quickly to give you relief, they can move quickly to take your money. And so there is a process. We have a legislature, we have a governor, we have a Supreme Court, we have a Constitution. But this problem, this issue that we're dealing with today with these 5 bills is not something that happened in the last 2 or 5 years. This is an evolving problem over decades. And like a business or your house or an individual, things that are maintained on a regular basis function better. And there has not been maintenance on the real estate tax issue in Ohio for many years. But under this governor and under this House and Senate, that is finally happening. I think most of us would say there's a lot more work to do. We have the twin goals of making taxes as low as they can be and as predictable as they can be while still making sure that these local government resources are provided, particularly our public schools. So I'm very happy that the governor invited me to be here today. This is a momentous occasion, and I might even take Monday off, Governor, and not go into the law office. So, Governor, I don't know if you introduce Pat or if he's going to come on.
I don't need any introduction, but thank you, Speaker. I will tell you that I wasn't exactly doing jumping jacks and celebrating when the governor asked me to co-chair this property tax committee, having been in the legislature before. I will tell you this is a really, really complex issue, far more complex than it needs to be. And today, I'll tell you that my hat's off to the legislature, the House and the Senate, the legislators behind me who are clear leaders in this effort, and the governor for signing this bill, and the governor for putting together a substantive committee to discuss this complex issue. And pretty simple to me, because of what the legislators have done, property taxes in Ohio will be more understandable and they'll be more predictable for those taxpayers who pay property taxes. That's a win for Ohio. That is a win for those taxpayers who I know were calling the governor and these legislators, and after I got appointed, calling me about telling me the stories of 48% increases and 50% and 60% increases. The governor said it right at the beginning. There's a balance here. The balance has been struck. This is going to be meaningful. The chairman walking in here, Chairman Romer, told me there needs to be more work done. That is also the right answer. This is important for a lot of organizations at the local level, but it's even more important for taxpayers who've felt a lot of stress. This proves that even the most difficult issues that legislators have to deal with can not only be accomplished, but can be accomplished in a bipartisan way, as all 5 of these bills pass with strong bipartisan practical solutions. So, Governor, thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Speaker, to the legislators here, to the senators, job well done. Merry Christmas.
All right, let's go sign the bill.
Plenty of pens.
That way when you get a pen, you'll think at least you're their bill, you know, their bill. We'll be confused. Mine is the worst, so.
Bless you. Hey, it happened.
I was wondering how we're gonna do that. I mean, we all hold it. Everybody, we have enough for the village. There's no method for this madness. It's just madness. You guys get to all hold them up.
With all of them open up, where everybody looks.
Everybody holds them up.
Yep.
Come up a little closer so you're not in the shadows. There you go. That's good. And Miss, if you just go right behind your shoulder. Perfect. Yeah, great. And looking right here, big smiles. Great. All right. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, one here as well. 3.
Okay. We got it. We have more pens here. Take them back to the staff.
That's what's under 25.
Mr. Speaker, you want to come on back? So before we get to questions, I want to turn to Senate Bill 293. I know you guys are waiting for this one, so among others. You know, the most significant part of the bill, let me just Senate Bill 293, the most significant part of the bill is that it would eliminate the provision in current Ohio law that provides that mail absentee ballots shall be counted that arrive at the County Board of Elections within 4 days after the election. I believe that this 4-day grace period is reasonable, and I think for many reasons it makes a lot of sense. Therefore, I normally would veto a repeal of this 4-day grace period. And frankly, that's what I wish I could do. However, there have been challenges to similar laws in other states. In fact, the Fifth Circuit has ruled that Mississippi's law that also provides for a grace period, as does Ohio law, violates a federal law that sets the date of election for all federal elections. That case from the Fifth Circuit has now been accepted by the United States Supreme Court. The case has not yet been argued, and frankly, we should not expect an opinion from the Supreme Court until likely late June. Now, no one knows how the Supreme Court will rule. However, if the court in late June upholds the Fifth Circuit case and Ohio's grace period for counting ballots is still in effect, the election situation in Ohio would be chaotic. This is because we would have one set of rules for state candidates, one set of rules for federal candidates, pursuant to that Supreme Court case. Two sets of rules, or even two separate ballots, one for federal races, one for state contests. This certainly would confuse voters. In state elections, their absentee ballot could come in within the 4 days after the election and be counted. But that would not be true for federal elections. Further, there simply would not be enough time for the legislature to pass a law to conform to the Supreme Court decision and federal law. Therefore, reluctantly, I signed this bill this afternoon. I'm more than happy to take questions.
Governor, are you going to talk about Senate Bill 56, the marijuana bill? Have you signed it yet?
No.
Are you going to issue line item vetoes?
I'm going to sign the bill momentarily, as soon as I leave here. And I have, through my line item veto, I have canceled out the provision in regard to liquid infused hemp. So
That's the only line item veto you've made?
that's the one. It's the main one. It's in there. I think there's one other technical one. So that by my veto, we eliminate that. We did it, frankly. Federal law only allows this to continue on until November anyway. I think it'd bring about more confusion. It seemed to me we should have uniformity in this area. So
it's a 9. Could you explain that a little bit more? I'm sorry. What provision specifically, when you're talking about liquids?
there is a provision in the bill that carves out an exception and allows the continued use of beverages that are infused. My veto takes that out, and my veto means that they cannot be sold.
Why? If they're, regulated because they're in liquor stores?
Yeah. So there's a number of reasons my veto message will spell this out in more detail. But one, federal law only allows these to continue to November. So the simplest thing, frankly, to do is to stop it right now instead of going until the date in November that's set by federal law, where they would have to go away anyway. Second, there is no real, when you talk to chemists, when you talk to experts in the field, there is no comparability between alcohol and the THC. And so it's much more difficult to determine exactly what impact this would have on a person. So, look, I don't think they're a good idea. I think they create problems, extra problems. I think that the person who is drinking it, as well as the person who serves them, will not know nearly as much about the impact as they would know, for example, in regard to alcohol, something that we've dealt with for many, many years. So these are some of the reasons, but again, it's detailed probably in more detail in my veto message, but those are the reasons.
Governor and Speaker, just to follow up on that question, if Congress were to rescind a hemp ban, would you be open to looking at it? I know there was language in the legislation that said that you would relook at potentially allowing for hemp if there was a regulation system.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the if-then questions are, there could be lots of things that Congress would come out and do. That the question is really, will rescind it in what way? Are they just going to go back to the agricultural order that they put out in 2018? I think the confusion that the federal government has done on a number of or caused on a number of issues, especially with marijuana, the banking issue, all of those kinds of things, it would be good if the states understood exactly what the law is. But we got to this point because of poorly drafted federal legislation and people taking advantage of it. So speculating about what the federal government may do in the future and what we may do as a result, I think adds to the same problem that has already been created.
Yeah, let me just, I agree with that, and I just add, we need to go back and look at this thing, what actually happened. What actually happened was, hemp was legalized, but no one envisioned, I don't think, maybe some people did, people who were going to take advantage of it, that basically they would ride hemp, which is legal, and do things that they couldn't do through any other way. And there's a gaping hole, and that includes liquids as well as the gummies that I was complaining about, been complaining about for some time. So again, no one intended this hemp law to open the door to basically unlimited THC. And so I think that my veto is consistent with that.
So are these drinks illegal now, or they just go back to being in the gray area that allowed them to kind of like proliferate in the first place?
No, they're illegal.
Governor, going back to 293, you laid out the precautions that you wanted to take with regard to like the Supreme Court case, right? And you mentioned that there wouldn't be time to update state election laws to make sure that they were all on the same footing for November. But I mean, do you really think that's the case?
Yes. Well, I had the same questions, and we talked to the Secretary of State. We talked to other people. When you start backing things up, what has to be done, when things have to be printed, if you start the clock, if you start things happening in late June, which I think is the most likely that this decision would come down, there really is not time. You got 90 days after a bill passes, so that shoves you back another 90 days. So I suppose one could argue, well, couldn't you put an emergency clause? Yes, you could, but there's no guarantee that would pass in both houses at all. So there's really no good pathway. I'll let the Speaker talk about it. He's the legislator, not me, but there doesn't appear to be a great pathway to clarify the situation and basically conform our law to the federal law if that's what the Supreme Court decides. Mr. Speaker.
And I think the governor laid it out pretty clearly. It takes 90 days ordinarily and that's assuming that there would be enough votes to, there'd be 50 plus votes to change the law. We'd have to get an emergency clause for that to immediately happen. We'd have to take some time after the decision was issued, that would take us into July. The 90 days for putting things on the ballot, that's the first week in August. The ballot has to be prepared to be presented to the public. I think that is like 65 days out, because it has to be mailed according to the federal law, by 45 days out to overseas voters. So are we going to get immediate agreement or enough agreement among all the members of the House, Republican and Democrat, to pass an emergency legislation? I don't think so. And so we understand that the issue is if you have two sets of rules, federal and state, that's confusing. It's confusing to voters in general. But what can happen right now with this bill becoming enacted is an education campaign to those who want to vote by mail and those who want to wait till near the day of the election to mail it in. That's the universe of people we're talking about. And I think these numbers are right. You can all check, of course, but there were about, in the 2024 election, general election, there were about 9,000 ballots cast during this 4-day period out of whatever the number is, 5.5 million or so cast in that election. And of course, the large majority of mail-in ballots were received by Election Day. So it's only these folks who are going to be, if you want to put it, inconvenienced enough that they're going to have to mail their ballot 4 days earlier. Someone's can get their ballot on the 30th day or 28th day and mark it and put it in the mail. So everyone who wants to vote for mail, which I suggest everyone who can, don't vote by mail, because there are too many bad things that can happen to your ballot. Do it in person if you can. Not everybody can. But everybody who wants to vote for mail, the Secretary of State's going to make clear for the primary election and the general election that you should you should do it right away and don't wait until the last 2 or 3 days to vote by mail. And those voters who are that inconvenience, if you will, I don't think that's a big inconvenience to make sure that we are clear about how our elections are going to run.
So let me just add to that. I agree absolutely with the speaker. So now in December 19th, people will now be on notice, and they can start thinking about that, and the word can get out through you all, through the media, that 4-day period is gone, and so people can make their decisions based upon that. As the speaker said, you can get your absentee ballot, 28 days or something before, so there's certainly ample time to do it. But I think putting people on notice and having certainty in the law is important. I think it's also important to state something which the facts clearly show, and that is Ohio has a long period of time to vote, and people have options of how to vote. They can go into the Board of Elections for 4 weeks before and cast their ballot right there at basically any time the board is open. They have the opportunity to get their absentee ballot early and mail that in. So there's many, many options that people have. And I think if you compare Ohio to many other states, Ohio allows a significant opportunity to vote. Again, if it wasn't for the Supreme Court issue, or wasn't for this case, not only my inclination, but what I would have done is, I would have vetoed this. But frankly, I tried to balance those things out, and I think I came down clearly on the side of certainty and to avoid what could have been a real mess in leading up to our election.
Governor, can you talk about the line item veto in the budget correction bill, House Bill 184?
No, I can't. So you're talking about, what are you talking about?
House Bill 184 to make appropriations to provide authorization and conditions for the operation of state programs.
Boy, I don't have anything on that. No.
The property tax reform, the group to abolish property taxes across the state is still going forward with their efforts to collect signatures and get an amendment on the ballot. What are your thoughts on that effort, and how concerned are you that that could be successful despite the property tax reforms that were just signed into law today?
Well, I think it'd be a grave mistake to completely do away with real estate taxes, with property taxes. Look, no one likes taxes, and we all would love to just say we have no taxes. But we have to provide for our schools, we have to provide for fire, EMS, police, and children's services, and many, many other things. So if that gets on the ballot, I would certainly hope, and I will contribute to this, I hope, a full discussion about what that would actually mean. And, you know, those services that we fund at the local level would not be able to be funded, and the state would be in a crisis when you just think about it. No funding for all the things that I just talked about that are funded primarily through local taxes. The legislature would have to come up with alternative funding. And what does that mean? I don't know any way you could really do that without a very, very significant increase in sales tax. An increase that would be so unprecedented that would be more than any other state in the union, that everyone would pay when they went in and bought something. You know, the exemption for food would go away. I mean, it just would be chaos. And again, you know, if it gets on the ballot, we will have that discussion. I think, you know, what took place today with the signing of these bills brings about meaningful tax relief, and it brings about clarity. And no longer will people see the spikes that they have seen. This action by the legislature on the bills that I signed was absolutely necessary. We do have a problem, and I think you know, the people who are trying to put this on the ballot, you know, their solution, I think, is untenable and makes no sense. But we have a problem. You know, when realtors tell me, my sister-in-law is a realtor, told me a few months ago, she says she's seen people that are literally selling their houses because they cannot pay their new tax that they have. They're seeing massive spikes, unprecedented spikes, unexpected to them spikes of 30%, 35%. And so you have a couple that is, let's say, 70 years old, they've paid their mortgage off, they've raised their family, they're in the same house, they like where they're living, and then they get hit with these real estate taxes that they just cannot pay. So there is a problem. Today's action, these 5 bills, are meaningful actions that people will see the results of. They will see some fairly quickly, but they also, in the years ahead, we'll see, I think, a lot more clarity, and when they vote for something, you know, they will know what they're voting for. I think what will have to happen is those who want to put on the levy, whether it's a school or whoever it is, you know, is going to have to go out and talk about it as they do, and talk to people about what the issues are. And I think they can do that. We have to fund our schools. We have to fund fire and police. But I think today we've made great progress, and we're moving forward. And I think it's a very good day for the taxpayers of Ohio.
We have time for one more question.
Governor, you said repeatedly that you would not sign more election-related laws. You say you're reluctantly signing 293. Are you able to make another promise today that if the legislature brings you an election bill?
My position is the same. We have made the changes that we have made. We run elections very well in Ohio, very, very well. We do it under Democrats and Republicans. We have Republicans watching Democrats, Democrats watching Republicans. We do it at the local level. We do it at the county level. We do a very, very, very good job. Secretary of State's office, whoever the Secretary of State, it runs exceedingly well. So we have a good system. You have to start off with that. So I do not want to see, you know, I don't see any imperative to change the law. So my position has not changed on that. What changed were the facts. And we were presented with something outside of Ohio, outside of Ohio, we're presented with something that I don't think we anticipated, and that is the Supreme Court of the United States taking up a case whether or not you can have any kind of leeway to when ballots can hit the election board. That's been going on, if you think about it, for decades. We've been doing that. And so no one at the time when I made my statement or when I signed the last election bills, I think, would have thought that this matter would be before the Supreme Court of the United States with a fairly decent chance, we don't know how much, but a decent chance of actually the decision coming down that we no longer could do what we have done for many, many, many years and other states have done for many, many years.